everyone. Welcome back. I am so grateful to dig in with Bria Gadd today, aka the Period Whisperer, and you're about to find out why. So this has really been an episode that I've so been looking forward to bringing into the space because one, I feel like she's really going to be digging into some really beautiful topics that affect every single woman, which I think will be really, really empowering to just talk about the different stages that we all move through and how to really empower ourselves through that. But also she's created this really beautiful and powerful, life for herself and business. And so I'm super excited to dive in today so that we can really dig into unpacking what she's created today. So to give you a little bit of background first about Bria. So she is a female hormone expert, an integrative nutritionist, holistic health coach, and certified personal trainer. And she specializes in helping women lose that weight, but also gain the energy that they're looking for in both pre and post menopause. So it's really allowing that clarity to come in where we may be experiencing that hormonal chaos. And so she's actually helped thousands of women lose weight in their 20s and 30s, but she's starting to really recognize this difficult shift in a woman's ability to get the results that she wanted in those perimenopausal years. And so she has come up with this really powerful, proven strategy over the last 12 years of experience, really allowing women to start to improve based on the challenges that they've been experiencing so that they really can experience any weight loss that they desire, but also really amplifying that vitality, that energy that we all really desire to experience in our life. So Bria, thank you so much for being here today. I cannot wait to dive in.
Thanks, Christina. I'm pumped to be here. And I'm always so grateful to be in your energy.
Yeah, same. I'm so excited to dig in. So I'd love to even start on, so you created this really beautiful life for yourself. It really feels like you've created something that feels very in alignment with your soul. Yeah. But I would love to dial it back to maybe a time where you felt like you were living out of alignment. And let's first kind of talk about, how did you recognize that you may have been living out of alignment? Like, could you feel it in your body? Was there certain mental chatter happening? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think that, that ties right into how I even got to be doing this thing. I think it takes living out of alignment to make the choice and the opportunity to live into it. Right. So, I would say, like you mentioned in the intro, thank you. I had built a business in online fitness and nutrition coaching, working with women for about 12 years. And I loved it. Like I really did love connecting with women and helping them find time for themselves. But around the age of 30 or 35, for me, I started noticing a shift in my clients, in how they were feeling in their bodies, in how they were getting results. Definitely more symptoms were coming up that were kind of getting in the way of this real focus that we had emphasized on, carve out time for you and get this workout in. And I remember thinking, this is different. Why? I'm not sure why this is happening. And I was going through a lot of transition in my life as well, moving countries with my family. And then around the age of 37, I started noticing a shift in myself. So I think that initial shift of watching my clients maybe struggle made me start to be one of those, the things that make you go, right? Where you're like, something doesn't feel right here. But I don't think I really noticed it in my body until, around 37, when I started having my own struggles in my actual body. So I think your question around where did I feel it? I think feeling out of alignment with the career or even the life that I was in started showing up for me around 37. And it looked like gaining weight when I didn't really deserve to, we'll call it. It looked like heavy and irregular periods. It looked like digestive issues. It looked like skin trouble. And then it looked like waking up in the night in night sweats. So it really came out of me in a physical way. And it was a dark and frustrating time. I mean, especially when you make a living helping people feel good. I thought I had this piece figured out. And I think, this idea of living in alignment really ties in very deeply to the transitions of perimenopause and menopause for women. And we can talk about that. But for me, it was very evident that how I had been living, the choices I had been making, both in my day-to-day life, like the micro choices of what I'm eating, what I'm doing, how I'm sleeping, and also more of the macro choices of my life, the relationship I was in, how I was coming to the table or not coming to the table with my emotions, how I was honoring myself, were out of alignment with what was meant for me. And, to kind of make that long story short, the lack of sleep, I mean, as you start to suffer with a lot of symptoms physically, as people know, like it will eventually drive you to your doctor after you do a lot of bad Google searching. We should not late night Google search for symptoms. And, I was 37. I thought I'd figured this out, but I was really suffering. And my doctor was wonderful, but she's like, Bria, you're the picture of health. And I think that was for me, that was my dark night of the soul moment where I was like, okay, if nothing is wrong with my body, but clearly something is wrong with me because of all these things I'm feeling, then it has to be deeper than, the blood tests that could happen. It has to be deeper. And that was really where I think I learned about this hormonal shift and how it impacts, and really understood where alignment plays a role, and how when we're out of alignment in our decisions, micro and macro, the universe will come to tell you one way or another. And that was when things really changed for me.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So I'm hearing you say you were having actual body sensations and experiences that were telling you that you were out of alignment, right? So you were saying the sleep issues, some of the stuff that was happening, maybe some acne on the face, things like that, where you were like, what is going on? So that is so powerful to just really witness, like, we're going to go through cycles of like shifting in and out of alignment. And I believe it's an ongoing process, like we're always evolving. And so I think there's something really potent and powerful to take from this, which is your body's going to tell the story when maybe we haven't totally tuned into our intuition yet, right? Like I think sometimes it'll be like a whisper of an intuition. And then sometimes where we don't know what that sounds like yet, or maybe we just don't hear it. And then our body may start to get louder and tell the story, right? It's almost like one of my mentors says, it's the prick across the face moment.
Yeah.
Taking me there,
Yeah.
And that's what's so powerful, is like really noticing when your body's telling a story and how it's actually getting you into deeper alignment, into your power even more. So I think that's so beautiful, is that you were recognizing, okay, my body's telling me a story. My doctor's telling me everything's fine, but something isn't. And so I think that's powerful. You started to take your power back into your hands of saying, like, you know what? I think I'm going to start honoring my truth. And so what did that look like as you started to kind of, shift and honor your truth a little bit more, and maybe started doing your own research in a different way? Like, what did that journey look like?
Yeah. So it started with, okay, I have to, expand my knowledge and better understand, what's really going on. So for me, and I think this path can look differently for other people. For me, I was so consumed with how my body was feeling that I had to start there. It's almost like, for me, Christina, it was like when we have a tantruming child and my body was like tantruming, I had to calm the tantrum in order to even get to what the alignment message or misalignment message was. I dove into research, into certifications and education. And it was first the focus on kind of calming that tantrum through different choices in kind of those main foundational health pieces, like through different choices in how I slept, through different choices in how I ate, through different choices in how I moved, and through different choices in how I managed my relationship with stress and my pleasure, those pieces, which to me are kind of your foundational pillars of physical health. So it started there. And that was, I think, the funny, not funny. That was the unique part for me, was that when that calmed, like when I was able to kind of calm the storm that had been going on inside me, yes, my sleep improved, and yes, my energy improved, and yes, like the stuck weight released in my body. But it was in that calming moment where I think I was able to access the part of myself that I'd been missing, and that I'd been avoiding, or that I'd been hiding from myself. And I think, like, for me, it was recognizing that I was in the complete wrong sexuality box. I'd been married to a man when really I was gay. So that was obviously, that for me, that was a massive recognition, and, almost, it was a massive transition. And I don't think that's everyone's transition of alignment. But the path, I think, which is your question, was started with I had to calm that piece. I had to get back to a place where I could actually hear myself again, like hear those whispers of my body, and then begin to honor and look at the truth of them once I even had the bandwidth to do so. So that's what that looked like.
So powerful. So what did you do specifically to bring calm into your body? Was
Yeah.
there modalities that you used, or was there something in particular that really helped you through that?
Yeah, I think, what's so fascinating is my research really took me towards better understanding this hormonally shifting time of perimenopause for women.
Mhm.
And it kind of blew my mind because I think we all have heard the term menopause. But
Right.
as someone who had worked with thousands of women who like made a living in the wellness industry working with women, I had not heard of perimenopause. And in fact, 50% of women don't know the difference. And yet 73% of women in North America alone are suffering with symptoms like I was going through of this transitional time and not getting the help that they need. Like they're going to their doctors and the doctors are saying you're the picture of health, which again, there's no blame there. It's just we realize there's something more to the story. So we're highly uneducated. So in the process of understanding the shifts of hormones, I learned that there are three things going on during this huge transitional time. There's kind of the science and the philosophy, and I'll tie them together. But one, it starts for all women at 35. So we're talking, and it can go, until 365 days after your last period. So it can be a 20-year, 25-year thing for some women. It's significant. It's
Mhm.
as significant as puberty, as pregnancy, as postpartum. And three things are happening in the body. And I think in order to talk about what to do or what worked even for me, I think we got to start there.
Yeah.
One, the role of the hormones that have driven us since puberty are being passed from our ovaries to our adrenals. So whose job it is being passed. So our adrenals are our stress managers. And so if they're now taking on another big job, they manage everything, already in our body. So they're taking on another big job. And that transition is an added workload on a body. We're transitioning to the stress managers, which is an added workload for them. So this is where I think we can start to become really aware of the things that are not feeling well and living out of alignment. So this is happening. The second is that the amount of our hormones obviously are changing. We're going from our fertile years to our infertile years. So the amount of these hormones are changing. And our main sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone, are symbiotic in nature. So when there's not enough of one, there's too much of the other. And our one hormone, progesterone, is really sensitive to cortisol, which any extra stress going on in our lives. So any unmanaged stress being released, and they fight for the same receptors. So what was a really common imbalance in these shifting years, these precarious years, is that we don't have enough progesterone and we have too much estrogen. So now we've got an added workload of the transition. We've got an added workload of an imbalance that starts to show up in symptoms. And then the third one, which I think is for me, how we really understand perimenopause. And that's that these shifting of the hormones impact the hippocampus and the amygdala, which are memory encoders and retrievers in the brain. And in essence, like the science behind that is that we start to become really aware of traumas we haven't dealt with, of things we've swept under the rug, of where we're living out of alignment that is bothering us. So we're feeling that misalignment in our body because of, maybe things we're choosing to do that are stressful for us or things we're holding on to. And then we're actually becoming much more aware of that misalignment in our brain. But I think the most beautiful aspect of it, because I believe when you ask a woman what to expect in menopause and perimenopause, a lot of what culture teaches us the story is, oh, it's going to be hot. I'm going to gain weight. I'm just getting older. There's nothing I can do about it. When I think the beautiful lens and philosophy around the realignment of us in this phase is that from the time we went through puberty until now, women are subconsciously driven to reproduce, right? To bring life into this earth every month. Every month, estrogen comes on the scene to make us more amenable, more nurturing, like more amenable to have sex and reproduce, more nurturing so that our children survive. And now that's going away. And I actually think it is the gift of perimenopause and menopause to help us become much more aware now of what doesn't serve us and how we want to live. I mean, it's kind of how men have always been able to live. They don't have these hormones, I don't want to say clouding, but coming into kind of in waves that, put on rose-colored glasses. Now we are very aware in our body of what's not working for us and in our brain of what we haven't dealt with, of what isn't working for us, of what we really want for our lives. And this is the time when the universe does kind of reach down and shake you by the shoulders and say, pay attention and get back in alignment. Because if you don't, it's not going to get easier.
Oh my God. Amazing. Like I was getting goosebumps as you were speaking because I haven't heard anyone speak about perimenopause and menopause in this way. It really feels like, as you were speaking, even before you said, it does feel like a gift based on the way that you were just describing it, like this like unveiling of like maybe what we haven't chosen to look at before and what a gift that is, because that gives us the ability to consciously know that it's there so we can move it, so we can shift it, so we can get back into what feels like our own truth. So how empowering to really look at it that way. And I'm so grateful that you're really teaching women how to look at this like it really is the gift that it is. And I think that's so beautiful because I think about, you're so right, the education that we've all had around, one, just sex education, two, hormones, three, our bodies. I mean, it's like basically everything I learned was like, this is bad, this is wrong, you'll die if you do this. All those, I was like, oh my God, like everything is scary. Why am I learning about everything?
Yeah.
And wait, you're like, no, like there's a reason and a season for all of this. And can we find gifts out of all of it?
Yeah.
And so I love that you've created now this business where you're really starting to share that with women, and women are starting to utilize that and create more power within themselves through that. Because now it sounds like it's not just about the body. It really is. It's about, utilizing the body and the hormones and the mind and the spirit all together to get back into alignment, to really understand, like, what is this teaching me?
100%. I absolutely, and I just think, and I think look, this, as you know, misalignment can show up in physical symptoms in any stage and age of life and any gender. But I believe that the gift of this transition is to make us so uncomfortable that we change, so that we stop numbing the edges of our life and get edgy, like change those edges of our life, And yeah, so thank you. I think that is the gift. And I didn't quite answer what the modalities are, so I can do that for you. But understanding that piece, I think for women is what allows them to come back into alignment and therefore shed the weight if that's what they're struggling with, or have more energy if that's what they've been struggling with, or heal in whatever way that they're needing to heal. And then the body responds because the body keeps the score.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. If there are modalities that you feel like were helpful, I'd love to just hear about those now, because I think that could be really supportive for a woman who's going through that. That's like, well, how can I lean in now that I have this knowledge? What else can I do to actually maybe calm my nervous system and maybe, from there, bring up my progesterone if that's helping me because I have less stress.
Yes, exactly. So I think that if you're like me and we need to deal with, obviously, it's very hard to kind of focus on maybe bigger challenges in your life, or even accept bigger challenges in your life when you're so uncomfortable. You can't sleep through the night and, you're having hot flashes or night sweats or your, digestive issues. So we want to kind of begin with this piece. And if you're having these symptoms, we know we have an imbalance, and it's, our hormones get a bad rap. It's like, oh, it's my hormones. They might be imbalanced, but they're not the problem. There's usually something causing the imbalance. So we kind of get to that piece. And I really like to look at this time when you're dealing with these symptoms, almost like you are struggling with, it's like having a broken foot. If we break our foot, to try to make it really real and tangible, if you break your ankle and you're a marathon runner, the first thing you have to do is cast up and rest that guy, because we have to make sure that your ankle, heals and that the inflammation comes down. And so the first modality back really is taking a look at your life and kind of eliminating the inflammation or the inflammatory activities as best as you can. And what's challenging about that, I think, or confusing for people, is that that does include like intense workouts and things because those are inflammatory by nature. It absolutely includes how do we, look at our nutrition and make sure we're not eating inflammatory things just for 4 to 6 weeks, like you would a broken ankle. So for 4 to 6 weeks, the focus really needs to be on resting, doing less and allowing your body the space and energy to heal itself, which it can do most of the time if given half a chance. And I think the easiest way is to look at our 4 pillars of health. Like if you had, like, no matter whether you look at wild animals or whether you look at humans, like there are 4 foundational pillars of our health: sleep, movement, nutrition, and like stress management or pleasure. We'll tie those together because you really can't have joy without managing your stress, right? Anyone knows that. Like you can watch a comedy that'll just have you in stitches one day, but if you are filled with stress, like it doesn't even sink in.
Right.
So we want to bring everything back to that in this first phase of healing, where it's like, okay, we need to create space for our sleep to be 8-9 hours a night. It might not be amazing at first, but we need to be very consistent about it. It needs to be, this is when I go to bed, and this is when almost like treating us like a baby all over again, right? The way we treat our children when they're born, a routine. We need to focus on eating, at very regular times in the day. Like we eat breakfast and then we eat lunch and then we eat dinner and then we go to bed, like a really consistent without any inflammatory foods, just to, again, bring the body back into balance. So it's not dealing with things when we want it to be healing. And then shifting our movement to just functional movement. So walking, stretching, that's it. We want to just, again, use any energy that the body needs to focus on healing and not on repairing new issues. Or like, I think this healing period is a real energy supply and demand challenge. And we need to make sure that we are supplying enough energy for the demand our body is going on during a time of healing and transition.
Mm.
So that's really, I'd say, to give some specifics, that's our real focus in the beginning is how do we heal, cast up and heal and repair for 4 to 6 weeks and give the body the space. And a lot of the times things start to shift quite naturally on its own. And then you have more of the bandwidth to look at the other areas of your life that are out of alignment.
That's so amazing. I love that so much because it's really tangible. I can witness that within myself. Like, oh yeah, if you look at it from the broken foot or the broken ankle, it would make to actually shift the way that I'm actually letting myself rest and repair versus sometimes we're trying to force our way through it or pretend like it's not there. Just, like that hustle culture where we're just trying to push through it versus like, well, wait a minute. How can I really foster my way through this? How can I actually like have some fun moving through this so that my body has the bandwidth and the energy, like you were saying, to heal itself?
Yeah.
So that's so beautifully said. And when I think about the way that I lean in with my clients and how we do a lot of deep healing on like an energy perspective, an emotional perspective, it does take time to pause and say, like, let's open up what's there. Let's take a look, start to move the energy, like, and to create that time and space to meet yourself so that you can heal yourself is so important. So I love thinking about that from a physical perspective too. And knowing it really affects us all across the board of both physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, all of those areas within us. And so I think that's really a very tangible way to think about how important it is to really pause and to allow ourselves to heal in those moments of pause. So thank you for giving us some tangible ways on how to do that. I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, you're welcome. I agree with you. I think we've gotten caught in the hustle mentality, but it's like we're all expecting Olympic levels of output of ourselves, but we're not treating ourselves like Olympians. Like Olympians know that there's an off season and on season. So there's a very clear, rest and recovery period. I mean, there's massages and like the right nutrition, but we're out there trying to create peak performance without the support that needs to be there in order for performance to peak.
Oof, so powerfully said. Yeah, I see myself in what you just said, where it's like I'm expecting certain things. That'd be the Olympian, but like, have I given myself the capacity to be able to hold that so that I can do that? I need to actually like set myself up for success on all sides of that spectrum before, after, and not expect it every single day. So powerful. I love that so much. So thinking about how now you really created a beautiful business around this where women can come to you and see and really seek support on like, where do I go from here? Having
Mhm.
figured that. But if we think about even just your business for a moment, what would you say has really attributed to the success of your business? Because there's a lot of people who are tuning in that are entrepreneurs that are going after their passion and purpose, and they're wanting to build and scale and make money doing what they love. So, what would you say has been a really beautifully attributing something or other that really brought you to the success that you're having now?
That's a great question. I think, there's sort of three pieces that have really moved things for me in the last couple years as I've shifted into this business space. One that I think it's probably the biggest one is like proximity and connection to others, like leveling up your circle of people because it normalizes, the challenges and the mindset stuff that we go through as entrepreneurs. It reminds you of what you're capable of when you struggle with those limiting beliefs and those doubts. It opens up opportunities and it just levels you up in a very beautiful but natural way without any forcing, right? Just the connecting and the proximity. So, joining a mastermind, getting in the room with other people who are experiencing what you're experiencing. So I would say that's probably the biggest piece. Absolutely. And anything along with that, I think is just the clarity, like clarifying your message, that getting in alignment with your message, because I think that confidence, and we all have different limiting beliefs, but for me, a lot of those voices are, you're never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. So working on the confidence and the clarity of what I'm here for and that messaging is a really important piece for me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. 100%. Because when you're clear, your audience is clear. And then
Yeah.
they know how to purchase and what to do
Yeah.
and how to create something with you. And so I
Yeah.
think that would be beautiful. And to your point, getting in the room,
Mhm.
that is really, really powerful expander for me as well, where it's like, I thought like in a mastermind, thought that I was paying for knowledge, for information. And I'm like, no, I did not even realize the best thing I've gotten in this space is being connected with other
Nice.
entrepreneurs up to big things that are normalizing, doing big things that are normalizing that it's okay to have fear and do it anyways. Like you're
Yeah.
really getting into a room with people that get it. And that's so empowering because sometimes it can like everyone around you is like, well, wait a minute, I don't get it. What are you doing? And so when you step into a room where almost everybody gets it
Yeah.
and up to big things, suddenly your goal, you're like, well, wait a minute, why don't I go bigger? This is like not even us. And so that really allows us to go even bigger and to also do that. Like the beautiful thing about a mastermind, you're sitting at a table with people saying, here's the biggest problem I'm having in my business.
Yeah.
To do when this happens? How can I
Yeah.
shift? So I
Yeah.
think that's cool too, is just starting to tap into each other's minds and say like, hey, knowing we're kind of in similar spaces, how did you break through this thing as well?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many intangibles that support you when you join something like that, right? Like we can kind of see and feel when we get in the room and someone's able to specifically help us or point us to someone else or like connect us or, tell what happened. But, what we don't even realize, I think, as we say, are the ways we level up or how we're pushed quite naturally to grow. And it's okay. It's like less painful growth, how we're supported when we're not together. Like it is a very energetic piece that you can't always like stick your finger on, but it is that law of proximity, I think. And so, yeah, it really makes a massive difference. And that has been a huge piece for me. And probably the last piece that is so important is always consistency, keeping going. Yeah, like
Mm,
nothing. We always hear these stories in business that always feel like catching lightning in a bottle. And
mm,
those are tricky stories because I think they're big and splashy and we hear them a lot, but there's not that many of them. And it really is like that. Like to go from this to huge in a short period of time is rare and is not the norm. And there's still a lot of ways to get to great success that doesn't look like that. And
mm,
maybe you get lucky and catch that shooting star along the way. But I think that focusing on like your integrity and your proximity and your clarity of your message and just consistently going out there again and again and again, like it'll always happen. And I think that consistency is what takes us there. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think while those stories are incredible because they show us what could be possible,
Absolutely.
oh, amazing. Absolutely. Let's source that. So not that off the table, but also knowing that just because it doesn't look like that does not mean that you're not successful, does not that you're not growing.
Yeah.
And I think entrepreneurs sometimes will get to that moment where they're like, well, wait a minute. Why did mine not happen like that? Oh, I guess I'm just good at this. And then they go back. They don't want to do it. It's like they were right on the cusp of maybe having a massive breakthrough. Or right on, like something really powerful about to happen that's going to change their business. And so I do think that a lot of people quit at the 11th hour and it's like, oh, that consistency is what pushes us through. And then we're here for something bigger than just financial success too. Like we're here to make an impact. And I think that's a lot of the staying power is like, no, it's here to make money. Because if I was just here to make money, then I could do something that's different, but if I'm here with massive impact, I don't want to quit on that.
Yeah.
I want to support people on this. I want to see how that's changing people's lives. I'm already seeing how it's changing people's lives. And I think that really helps with the staying power too, is like really connecting to your why, really connecting to the impact that you're making. And that translates into dollars and that translates into wealth. And so when we are really grounded into that, I think that makes such a massive.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. And just that, I think in all aspects of alignment, like for where our purpose, for our career, for our body and our health, it's that constant grounding, like you're saying, and checking back in. Because we're very drawn in the world to look outside of ourselves for what to do and for approval. I'm absolutely guilty of this myself. But when you tap in, that's where the answers are. That's where they lie.
Yeah. Yeah. So beautifully said. It's so true. And so I'm wondering too, when you think about, so this entrepreneurial journey, like you were just mentioning, it's not just straight up and into the stars. Like there's a moment up and the down and the up and the down. So were there any moments where you felt like you stumbled and you learned from that? And how did you pick yourself back up and learn from that? Some people call it quote unquote failures, but it's not that. It's those like, the pivoting moments that have me do it differently next time or have me really powerfully about myself. So what were some of those moments? How did you pick yourself back up?
Yeah, I mean, so I think I made a real shift into this space. It'll be almost 2 years, or around 2 years ago, we'll call it. I started by launching the podcast, and I think I didn't really have any offers. Like I didn't know how to help people. I just knew I had this message on my heart. And so figuring that piece out was really challenging. Like I've launched a lot of things that haven't gone anywhere. I've also only launched them once and never, so a big mistake that I have made in the past is like launching something, feeling it wasn't successful enough, and then giving up on it and having to and trying to start over and really recreate. So I know that's been a big challenge. And then just not having that clarity for me. Like, how am I helping people? What am I helping people with? So, and some of that I think is like, we all do things differently. I am definitely one of those people who's like, I'm just going to jump and figure this out on my way down. That's sort of more my nature. But in that process, sometimes you're like, do I even have a parachute? Like, what am I doing? So there have been lots of moments where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, sometimes. And I think the mistakes in there, like I've definitely joined things or invested in hiring things that really I shouldn't have. Like they weren't in alignment. They weren't the right piece for me. So like, I think that clarification of your message, getting, really knowing what you're trying to accomplish and what help you need with that really helps with that piece. But I learned at a young age, like there's this thing we call fundamental ability, which is a person's ability to regulate their mood in pursuit of a meaningful goal. And I always kind of come back to that and that idea of the transition curve of life, where it doesn't matter what you do, any new goal you try to go after, any new experience you try to have, there's always this uninformed optimism, right? we're all like, woohoo, this is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's always a point where you're like, oh no, like this is life, like, oh no. And then you're like, what did I get myself into? Am I going to stay or am I going to run? And every single time I push through, that's when we kind of reach that point of we call it informed optimism, where you're like, okay, now I really know what's going on here. And it looks no different than like biking up a huge hill. Like you're like, it's going to be an amazing view from the top. It's going to be epic and you get halfway up that hill and your legs are burning and you're sucking wind and you're like, what did I decide to do? And you get to the top of that hill and you've got this view and you've got the sailing down with your hair flying and that big rush. Like there's always a view from the top and a downhill as long as you keep going. And so for me, that's, I think, what's helped me, that mindset piece, keep going in the process because I've made dozens of mistakes and I will continue to do so.
Yeah. And so I think that's what's so beautiful about what you were just saying. And I absolutely love that perspective because it's so true. Like if we can keep that positive, at the very least, like be grounded in the fact that we know that this is leading us somewhere, even if we took the wrong path, it's still leading us to the top. Where it's like, okay, let's route and get back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of just being like, okay, no matter what, I am still going to the top. And every way, next time I go up this hill, I'll know how to do it. I'll know how to do it another way, right? I'll know how to do it. There's less trees or whatever that might look like. So I think that's so powerful is just starting to think about like, the first time we do it is a little wobbly. I mean, think about the first time we walked, you think about baby deer legs. Like they're like, what are these things? And it's like, but then they're galloping, we're running, we're starting to actually like, oh my God, I feel so free. And it takes the first few steps. It takes the first couple laps. It takes the first miles to really be like, hey, I've got this. And so, I think that's something really powerful to tap into is just knowing that it's all leading to the same place. Even if we took the wrong route, it's still leading us to the place that is our intention. Yes. And so letting it all be okay, letting it be a lesson, letting it be a learning, letting it be maybe just a break for a second. Yeah. I think I was going to look at my map for a second. See if I even am direction. So I love that's beautiful.
Yeah, that was a great add to it. I hadn't even thought about like at some point things get so familiar, you can do them blindfolded, right? And then it doesn't require the same energy and you can try something new. Like newness always requires more energy and then it doesn't anymore.
So true. And giving yourself the space for that new energy and to kind of old stories too. Like I know whenever I'm trying something new, my ego will be like, hold on, let's not go there. Let's more safe over here. And I create the space to be like, let me somatically move that because there's a part of me that wants to stay small and know where I'm going and the impact I desire to make gets to be bigger. And so for me, like, let me take a moment to move that maybe excess energy that's trying to keep me smaller so that I can build. And then it gives me all that energy to then build. Right. And it's all about just like shifting out the old energy, bringing in the new so that we can build. Yeah. So I think that's so true is just creating a little extra time and a little extra energy to build when we're doing something new. I think that's a really important point to call out too.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So I'm curious, I always like to ask people this. Do you have any, let's say, money-making tips for entrepreneurs? So maybe someone who's trying to scale, it could be energetic, it could be tactical. I always like to ask this question because sometimes people go into like some of the woo-woo, like manifestation work. And sometimes people are like, let me teach you about a spreadsheet. Either way, when entrepreneurs are building a business, I think there's wanting to really connect to the impact, which we talked about earlier, and also wanting to bring in that cash flow as well. So is there anything that you've learned that's helped you kind of scale your business the way that you have or make money in your business?
Yeah, that's such a really great question. I mean, the first thing that came to mind, it was like, you focus on your health, like your health. You have to focus on your health as much as you focus on your business, I believe. And that's mental health and physical health. But it's like, we know that when we prioritize these 4 key health pillars of our life, that we have more energy to give. We have more brain power and clarity to give. We have, more to offer, obviously, our family. We can fight sickness better. And that creates the opportunity for more productivity no matter what. So I think, for me, it's like I always need to prioritize my health. And that keeps me in this consistent pace that, is like, for me, I think my spirit animal is a tortoise probably. So it's like, be the tortoise. So, I'd say that, and you see if there's anything else. I think I thought of one more thing. I think one of the biggest pieces that has helped me increase sales in the last year specifically is not reinventing the wheel. Launch, tweak, relaunch, tweak, relaunch. Don't feel like you need to recreate something. I think that it really does take several times as the energy and the ripple effect of what you put out there expands, it will continue to grow. So put your energy into being, the clarification, the loud and proud over it. And that's how we get closer to perfection, is the launch and the tweak and the launch and the tweak, the relaunch. So that'd be, I think, my more tangible piece of advice.
I love it. I think like sometimes we're like these multifaceted entrepreneurs that we're like, we must reinvent all the time. And I think that's cool. But I do think there's something like in someone really recognizing your brand for something is when you're talking about it more often, when you have these substantial parts of your business that someone can be like, oh, I can count on this person to teach me that. And I know where to land. And so I think that's the beauty in launching something, but also like you were saying, tweaking it, like really like letting a learning curve as you're doing it too. And then each time you're going to do it a little bit better, a little bit different. And so I think that's really powerful too, is just the power of consistency and the power of really showing up for the people that you're impacting and letting them know how to lean in. And so I think that consistency is because it makes it a lot more obvious. How do I lean in? Because I've heard you talk about it once or 7 times before where they're like, oh yeah, it's very clear to me now. What the hell is she offering this week? And I need to, there's another learning curve here. And how do I lean in now? So I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Amazing. So what advice would you give to, this will be our last question before we wrap. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's leaning into the passion and purpose and really having this be something where they're going to impact humanity? What advice would you give to people?
I think believe in yourself and surround yourself with people who remind you to believe in yourself when you forget, because it will happen.
Yeah. I love that.
Because I really believe that it's giving up that keeps us from our potential, but believing in ourselves is such a critical part of getting there, of never giving up.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's beautiful too, is like cultivating that belief within yourself, even when the people around you might not get it at first. I think that there is, especially let's say you're new to this, you're first leaning in. I know there was a part of me that was like, a bunch of people are kind of questioning, like, what is she up to over there? And then, things, people, places, jobs start to kind of fall away. And those people that are meant to be in your space to really build you up begin to have space to come in.
Yeah.
And so beautiful too is like, then once you've really cultivated that belief within yourself, then you find yourself being surrounded by people who believe in you too, who you've created to all in. And that's the beauty of, a partner that believes in you, masterminds, mentors, these spaces that I will always lean into is like really having a backboard to talk to about things and really allowing me to move through my limiting beliefs and things of that nature too. So amazing. I love it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Christina. This has been amazing.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on. So I know that people are going to want to connect with you. So where are you hanging out? What's the easiest place where people can connect with you?
Yeah, I think come on over and check out the Period Whisperer podcast. Like if this is, if you're interested in healing and women's health and that kind of piece, then anywhere you get your podcasts. If you just want to connect, then pop on over to Instagram, Bria_period_whisperer, and shoot me a DM there and let's chat.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So much beauty, wisdom coming through. You are incredible. I'm so grateful for the women that are already in your space, myself included, and the women that are now coming into your space because you truly are such a light and you just beam so much wisdom into the spaces that feel like they've been such a shadow. And so it's nice to have that illuminated to realize what's actually true. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you.
Of course. All right, guys, until next time.